he's incompetent. Everybody knows it. He doesn't even know. Somebody's making decisions in there. It's not him. He is look, when it comes to a lot of countries, I think he's a Manchurian candidate because he receives money from China. He gets a lot of money from China. People say, I wonder why he's so weak on China. He gets a lot of money from China. And I would say maybe it's going to be more than that because we're going to have, look, I want China to do great. I do. And I like President Xi a lot. He was a very good friend of mine during my term.
Well, look, COVID cover-up, intellectual property
when
theft.
COVID came,
the list
is
long from our number one adversary. So I don't know if he's a friend.
No, but I got along with him great. I'm not sure he loved what I was doing because I was, getting along with him.
I don't think he wants you in the White House, Mr. President.
No, he doesn't. Their market almost crashed when I won Iowa and New Hampshire. The market went down tremendously.
The former president openly talks about his admiration for dictators and has vowed that he will be a dictator on day one. Understand what dictators do. Dictators put journalists in jail. Dictators suspend elections. Dictators take your rights. And as the great Maya Angelou once said, when someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. Well, the former president has told us who he is. And it is on us, then, to recognize the profound threat he poses to our democracy and to our freedoms.
A political solution to those problems. So litigating which slate of electors was legitimate, I think, is fundamentally the political solution to the problems that existed in 2020. It's a reasonable debate to have, and I find it weird, George, that people like you obsessed with what I call what happened in 2020. You're so incurious about what actually happened in 2020, which is why so many people mistrust our elections in this country. We've got to do better, George.
I'm not the least bit incurious. In fact, you laid out a litany there, but you didn't answer the question I asked. Would you have certified the election results had you been vice president?
If I had been vice president, I would have told the states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, and so many others that we needed to have multiple slates of electors, and I think the U.S. Congress should have fought over it from there. That is the legitimate way to deal with an election that a lot of folks, including me, think had a lot of problems in 2020. I think that's what we should have done.
So it's very clear you would have done what Donald Trump asked you to do there, not what Vice President Mike Pence did. You said that that's about...
Whatever goes forth has to be much better immediately.
Harris, we're not going to get much better immediately, so I'm going to take those incremental steps. If this were going to tie Donald Trump's hands, I would be opposed to it immediately. It doesn't. It doesn't tie any good administration's hands.
So why do you think he's against it?
I have no idea. I haven't spoken with him about it. If he has specific issues, let him air those issues. I will give the positive points in this bill. There are negative points. But if we don't even let this bill come to light, if this bill doesn't even go to the fore, we don't even get amendments. And that's what everybody's talking about. Everybody's talking about killing it before you're able to even offer amendments. That's wrong. Let's have this
at the border. While he is negotiating with the Senate legislation that is necessary because executive action is insufficient in this situation, he is negotiating legislation that would address the border. So the House Republicans, rather than engage in those negotiations to try to find bipartisan solutions in divided government, instead are using this sham impeachment that is absolutely baseless, that demeans and debases the impeachment clause of the Constitution, turns it into a pure political weapon, and they're doing that while President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas are trying to solve the problems at the border. They are doing this purely for political reasons and political gain. And what it is showing right now is that Republicans, especially in the House, do not want to solve the problems that the American people care about. They just want power, and they just want to help Donald Trump.
The solution is real simple. Joe Biden's not going to fix a problem that he purposely created. So the only answer is for the Congress. The party that has control of the money says, okay, no money, one sentence, no money can be used to process or release into the country any new migrants. So we simply say time out. we're no longer going to let people come into the country who are seeking asylum. You're not getting in. Just say 8.5 million, on pace to get to 12 million. That's probably enough for one administration. Let's say timeout, and then let the American people decide how we want to deal with this in November when we have President Trump, who actually had control of our border, against President Biden. Let the country decide. What Congress should do is say, on the funding bill, no money can be used. Here's another one we
in private, reportedly calling him a sick F word and an effing A word, and Trump isn't the only one that's the target of Biden's ire. Apparently, he has now turned on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who Biden is now reportedly calling, quote, a bad effing guy. The White House is denying that report. Regardless, it looks like Biden has given up on the charade of being that kind, likable, gentle old man, like a grandfather figure. He's now fully revealing himself to be the arrogant, lifelong politician he's always been.
And let us recognize there are extremists across our country who have been inspired, encouraged, and even cowered by the former president. In this moment, just look at states across our country where we witness a full-on attack on hard-fought, hard-won freedoms and rights. The freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from the horror of gun violence, the freedom to live without fear of hate or bigotry, the freedom to be who you are and love who you love openly and with pride, the freedom to learn and acknowledge our nation's true and full history, and the freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have the government telling her what to do.
Want to talk about is weird juries in New York City. They want to talk about how to make their lives better and how to bring the world to a more peaceful place.
So juries in New York City are not legitimate when they find someone liable for sexual defamation and assault?
Well, when the cases are funded by left-wing donors and when the case has absolute left-wing bias all over it, George, absolutely, I think that we should call into question that particular conclusion. We have to remember, of course, that these cases exist not because they were trying to seek justice. Reid Hoffman, a far-left donor, did not fund this case because he cares about what happens to sexual assault victims. He funded this case to harm his political opponent, Donald Trump. It's pretty weird. It's a weird thing to do, to use the courts in this way. It's never happened before in American history. And yes, I think it should call into question the entire apparatus that's being used to go after Donald Trump.
So you're not troubled by the sexual assault and defamation. Let me ask you about January 6th. You've been mentioned as
Here's a claim being circulated on Twitter, or X, by Elon Musk, who posted, quote, the long-term goal of the so-called border security bill is enabling illegals to vote. It will do the total opposite of securing the border, unquote. Now, I know that Elon Musk is not an expert on illegal immigration or the border, but he has a huge megaphone.
He does.
Explain what he's talking about here. Is he wrong?
Well, I think he needs to go back to doing the 2 million Teslas that are currently being recalled right now to be able to focus in on that. No, it's not focused on trying to be able to get more illegals to vote. That's absurd in the process on it. It is against the law for anyone that is not a citizen of the United States to be able to vote in the United States in any federal election. That remains so. Obviously, we're not dealing with that.